Welcome back to the Hubscale Podcast. This week's guest is Anne Gotay, the VP Growth from Dropzone AI. Anne, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I spent the last 13 years in the cybersecurity startup world. In the first half, I would say more marketing operations focused on, what makes that marketing engine grow or lack thereof, and having all of the data at my fingertips, keeping the engine running essentially for the marketing team. The second half was spent on growing out and leading the marketing function and really driving growth for startups. And with that, I've learned a lot about very technical founders who think they are marketing experts like everyone else. Everybody wants that billboard at the Super Bowl is kind of the ultimate marketing, I suppose, gut check for founders of having achieved success and learned so much, especially during COVID. And also with that, created a services or software as a service agency where we essentially help cybersecurity startups with growth marketing called Cubic Squared. So co-founder of that and also leading VP of growth at Dropzone.
Awesome. That leads us nicely to Dropzone and the Dropzone AI Diner. So, for those who maybe weren't at RSA, first of all, could you tell us a little bit about Dropzone, and then, yeah, what was or what is the Dropzone AI Diner?
Sure. Fear not, if you're going to Black Hat, you'll see the diner bigger and better than at RSA. So Dropzone, we're an agentic SOC company. What does that mean? There are 50 different flavors of agentic SOC currently in the space. So it sounds like a very noisy thing to say. But essentially, we have agents that we've built out for every role in the SOC that collaborate together to help with all of the kind of tedious, repetitive work so that the humans can tag team with AI and really focus on the threats that matter and triaging those. So if you were not at RSA, onto the really fun question, what was the diner? So we set out with with 20 by 20 foot booth, which is a pretty large space for us as a third year startup. And we were in transition of building new agents that were not necessarily going to be available by RSA and all of those booth deadlines. And so what were we going to do if we have messaging that is in progress? We're switching from an AI SOC analyst messaging, so single agent to agentic SOC at the same time as well. And so the stakes get really high of how do you finalize that booth 3 months minimum before the show, without necessarily knowing exactly what you need to talk about and everyone having agreed internally on positioning and messaging. So we thought, what do we do? And it's really because of this. I always say I have a servant leadership style, so I enable my team and get out of their way. And I'm a firm believer in you're only as good as your team as a leader. And if I didn't have my two women on my team, Kim and Chantel, this would not have been possible. So Kim, coincidentally, Tom, you and team helped us source Kim as head of field and channel events. And usually you try to find those right people in an interview, and some are excellent interviewers, but not so great in person, and vice versa. We really hit the jackpot here where we were able to everything we learned about Kim in the interview process with Chantel, who's head of marketing ops and also part of growth marketing, said after the interview with Kim, we have to hire her. And I felt the same way in everything we learned. And coming full circle, when we sat there saying, what do we do about this booth? Kim started sourcing ideas. And what I pride myself in as well is hiring a team that is very AI forward. So Kim was using AI. She came up with different concepts. One of those was the diner booth. And we were riffing on different ideas. Should we have an airplane? What should we do? And really, the lack of having final positioning and messaging, knowing exactly when that product timeline would come to fruition, was a forcing function for us to take a really abstract approach. So when we looked at the diner, why did that matter? Because it's something that really stands out. It's not the typical background behind, let's make it something that is Star Wars focused or has Tom Cruise in it or any of the other typical technology, maybe video game things that people, there are some cool booths, right? But it's a blast from the past. It's the old playbook. Why do that? It does not stand out. The diner hits all the generations, whether it's the youngest generation all the way through the oldest. Everyone knows in the US what a diner is. And so really we're trying to strike that sentimental chord with every single person who may or may not come by of this is cool, this is different, it's an experience. Let me check it out. And I guess you could ask, why a diner when you're in security, and how the heck are you going to tie that story together? So for us, the diner meant it's always open. My husband's a New Yorker. I loved the diners when I went to grad school there. It didn't matter if it was, 1 a.m. or 10 p.m., I could go and have food. And so just like a diner is always open and serving its customers, our agents are always working so that your security team can take some time off. So we were really thrilled that we could tie the whole thing together as well and have it make sense.
Awesome.
Love
Um,
that.
sure. What were you hoping to achieve by taking such an abstract approach?
A boatload of things. So most importantly, we have those 50 different flavors. My CRO likes to call those ankle biters of all the different vendors out there. And given we all sound the same, we've been at the forefront of the category for quite some time, Dropzone. We were the first out of the gate. We have the largest customer install base. And what could we do to really build on that brand awareness that we've already established? Everyone knows who Dropzone is. So what can we do to build trust, stand out? I mean, those were really the major starting points, all the way down to can we tie it back to the product so it's relevant? I see all these cool ideas, but usually people have no way or vendors of tying it back to the product. And then ultimately, our largest channels in terms of driving both pipeline and close won deals in the past have been SEO. So think all things digital, as well as social media. So what could we do to really boost those channels? So my intention was if we go live with this booth, we get that brand awareness of, oh yeah, that's the only agentic SOC company that had a cool booth. It was the AI diner. Now, when we have the positioning and messaging set in place right before RSA, our product has been announced and it's now in beta, the threat hunt agent, then we can simply work on converting those folks. And best way to do so is to fill those two channels that have the best odds of conversions.
Awesome. And another thing I know that you mentioned previously is that you kind of designed this to go viral, essentially.
Yes, for sure. So the
What?
intention behind that was what can we do? Or did you have a follow-on question to that?
Yeah, my question was going to be like, how did you come up with an idea that was going to go viral, and then like why and how do booths go viral?
So I like to say, why reinvent the wheel if you have a good baseline somewhere else? We've all admired Wiz's booth, right? I mean, they've had a diner concept in the past, which is not why we chose the diner. We found that out by chance in our research. But everyone remembers the Wizmart, where they were clever enough to even sell their own swag. I think that's brilliant.
Sure.
So how can you outdo a behemoth and basically a household name like Wiz? Sounds crazy. My team thought I was crazy. But essentially, it takes really three things. So we did a lot of research, and Wiz has actually put together some research studies as well on what makes their booths go viral. So the first one would be anything that you can see, so movement.
Mm.
The second one is what you smell. So think of food, experience, anything like that. And then also sounds. And if you knock all three of those out of the park, now you have something that's really sticky. But in addition to that, to go viral, you need to give people lots of opportunity to take photos, selfies, and to engage with your experience and want to post because we both know, for example, if we looked at Torque in the past, if you wanted a sticker, you had to go and follow them on social and tag them. That works because Torque has been around a little bit longer for them. It may not work for everybody, but for us, that's giving our customer work. Why would we do that? We want to show them that no matter what, we have their back and make things fun and easy for them. And
Sure.
so really creating those opportunities that make people stop and say, wait a minute, I should take a picture of this. Let me post about it. This is cool. I want to tell people I was here.
Awesome. And the I saw lots of stuff about the diner on social media. Was that something that you thought about specifically from day one, or did that emerge later?
We thought about it from day one because it is one of our highest converting channels. And it's important to note here, it's not paid social, but organic social, which is
Sure.
unheard of typically for our stage in cyber. And so what we did to incorporate that was made sure we had really bright neon signs. We made sure that everything was on brand. So if you walked by this booth, you stopped because it literally looked like you had walked into a mini diner. What
Yeah,
is this? It
sure
looks
did.
really cool. Every last detail has been thought of, right? Like we have Dropzone diner mugs, we have branded Tabasco, we had a cool sticker sheet with all kinds of puns on the diners, such as not burned out and bacon, which works better for obviously US audience than EMEA. We had even something like probably too shiny, but branded menu on the front with puns, and the back was basically data sheet. We went all out and made sure that everything was on brand. On top of that, we had a photo booth station where people could take selfies and gifs. We had food, so we had Wagyu sliders, we had milkshakes, the typical diner stuff we pulled off, even though we're restricted with whatever RSA offers in terms of the vendors there. And we also had Dropbird. Dropbird was a huge hit. So Dropbird was, think of if you've watched movies like Wall-E in the US or anything similar to that, robots, Dropbird was able to go and engage and talk to the audience. He had a little microphone. I'll
This
give the
blew me
secret
away, by the
where
way. Properly took me
Yeah.
by surprise.
Yes, and it comes with a human handler. And why does that matter? One, it's 250 pounds. We don't want it to go rogue. Who knows how good AI is at this point, right? But on the other hand, the handler had a mug, like a travel coffee mug with a little microphone and buttons. And so depending on it, she could go and have this robot walk up to somebody. There's a little microphone on the robot as well and a camera. And so she could engage and riff on the fly with the audience, which had people stopping, cracking up. I mean, I have such fantastic video footage that our team loves of just people's reactions of, wait a minute, how can you talk to me? Get said to one guy, are you enjoying the popcorn? He's like, it's really good. Right? And so that alone, Dropper was so eye-catching and checked all those boxes of sounds, movement, those pieces. And yes, it looks like a little retro robot. Some others had more modern ones, but our whole idea was retro diner and infusing that with modern elements.
Yeah, and it really worked. Obviously, this is such a bold idea, and you guys pulled out all the stops.
Mhm.
How did you pitch it to Edward, the founder, and the rest of the leadership team?
I have to say, that's probably the most common question I've been getting. How'd you pull it off? I, our founder is very data driven, and he's an engineer at heart and quite visual. If I were to go to him and say, should we do an airplane theme or a diner theme? He would look at me and say, I don't know. Right? And the founder shouldn't have to worry about those things because it seems like table stakes unless you pull something off like we did. So I explained positioning and messaging is in the works. I don't have final tagline, what have you yet for the newest versions. Booth signage is due. We cannot change it in any circumstance. I explained that we were debating if the product would be, beta or announced or GA at the time we have RSA, and that I had very little to work with. And I said, we have this massive space and an opportunity, but the one thing that we've been absolutely knocking it out of the park with all day long, next to our product truly working the way we say it does, is our brand awareness. And so I explained, here's all my research, here's what I'm looking at, this is what I want to do. And he said, well, how much does this cost? The difference is if you supply all of the data of the average nice and boring booth, because that anything over 10 by 10 is a custom build, whether you like it or not. And you explain, hey, on average, a booth this size is going to cost me 200K. That's to put everything together, tear it down. A lot of the time, it's CapEx versus OpEx. The only thing you can really walk away with post-show is signage. The
Sure.
rest is trash, unfortunately. You can reuse it at Black Hat. We will be doing that bigger and better with optimizations. But that's about it. So I had to convince finance that this is how it works. We don't get to keep much beyond signage for our first in-person office. I had to explain to Edward that if we go with a bold theme, it's maybe 150. If we go completely ham and crazy, 200K more. The cost we're splitting between Black Hat and RSA. And if we're looking at 150, 200K more for full-blown experience that differentiates us from extremely stiff competition compared to an average booth, it's a no-brainer. Yes, it's risky, but really my advice I would give to other marketers is supply the data of the average thing that people do, what it will take to pull off your idea, and then put together, even if it's putting a stake in the ground. We've never done something like this at Dropzone. Estimates. Here's what we expect on social. Here's how many press releases we want to be in. We want to be in at least 50 social mentions. We want to have 20,000 impressions on social. We expect at least 30 pre-booked meetings, at least 20 in the first month post-show. You supply all of that data, it's a much easier conversation because you're also saying, hey, I'm committing to this. We do use a ton of AI, so we battle tested our ideas. The part where it gets really interesting is I said, we're going to go viral and we're going to beat Torque in terms of virality. And we'll do a better job than Wiz. That's where I could see him looking at me. I'm not sure what you've put in your coffee today, but it must be good. He didn't say it, right? But I could see. And funnily enough, when all this was one and done and we hit the last goal by winning the Cybersecurity Marketing Society's Best Booth Award in first place for our booth size, Edward came back and said, Edward's our founder. When you said we were going to go viral, honestly, I thought you were smoking crack. That's such a bold statement that seems so marketing fluffy, but you did it. I can't believe you did it.
Sure.
And to me, that was so fun to hear him say that. And I'm really lucky, and this is part of the reason I'm working with Dropzone because I have a founder who's not afraid to say that.
Yeah. Were there any concerns or any objections that came up from like finance, for example? Because I'm assuming you had to get the budget signed off.
Yeah, that was not so pretty a conversation. Our finance person is very experienced, but doesn't necessarily have all that experience in the cyberspace.
Yeah.
So the mindset initially when I came to her was, you're going to use this booth for 4 to 5 years, right? No, absolutely not. And I had a lot of haggling and explaining to do. And typically how it goes with marketing, you can't just lean your head out of the window. You have to lean your whole body out of the window and hope you don't fall when you come up
Sure.
with a bold idea. It's just that I had to explain why it's important to be bold, why in this market it's mission critical. I had the CEO's buy-in that really helped me out. But a much, much harder conversation with her of, unfortunately, this is just the reality of cybersecurity. Your booth without any cool components and just the average booth is going to be maybe 100K less. And we have to do this. And then, of course, I got the polite death threat of, you better pull off all these
Mhm.
results. But thankfully, we got away with it.
So when pitching the idea internally, it sounds like you came up with some outcomes that you were expecting in terms of like return on investment. So what were those and what were the ones that maybe mattered the most? Yeah, talk us through it.
If you ask CRO and sales, it is all about the meetings and pipeline.
Yeah.
Pipeline is important, but for us, we're measured on the marketing side, we're measured by intro meetings and opportunity creation, so conversions to opportunities. Why does that matter? Because pipeline in this market ebbs and flows constantly. If there is a dollar amount tied to a deal that we converted from RSA, today might be 100K, tomorrow might be 200K, and then a month from now it might be 80K. And so if I were to use pipeline as which I did initially, guilty, as my sole basis of what is or isn't working, I would have a lot of sleepless nights.
Mm,
So the expectation was, all right, RSA, how many meetings are you getting out of it? And then we look at the cost per meeting in our ICP, ideal customer profile, and not just meetings, but completed meetings to make sure nobody bails. And then we say, all right, with all of those meetings, the meeting cost hit that minimum threshold or average of what we expect? You didn't go out of line with your cost per meeting. And then if we multiply those meetings by our ACV, what is that looking like? Do we match up to the investment made? At the very 30,000-foot view, that's what we're looking at, cut and dry. You and I both know, as well as every marketer listening to this, that RSA and Black Hat are largely about brand awareness. If you are anywhere in a category mentioned, you better show up or it looks like you're going belly up
mm.
as a startup. So you don't have a choice. That brand awareness, a lot of times, is part of the dark funnel you cannot measure. That's exactly why we focused on social and all the other data points so that we can prove it. We even went as far as, should we maybe have messed up a little bit? Let's make sure we give every single person a diner receipt or a bill that has a QR code for an NPS score. What did you think of our booth, 0 to 10? Just in case, I wanted to have that in my back pocket to go, hey, it worked until we get some data. So we really battle tested every piece, but how at the end of the day did we come up with that? We were aiming for 2,500 badge scans at the booth. We wanted to have a 20,000 impressions on social during just that week. We wanted to be mentioned in at least 50 posts. We wanted to have around 100 selfies taken in our photo booth. And we wanted to be in at least 3 journalist or press articles. And then ultimately we wanted to, selfishly for our team, wanted to win that most beautiful booth award from the Cyber Marketing Society. We had the goal of pre-booking 30 meetings beforehand. And we also wanted to convert, so to happen during the RSA conference. And then we also wanted to convert a good 20 meetings post RSA within a month of RSA from
Sure.
those lead scans. So how did we fare? Good question. We were able to get 2,880 badge scans. I was worried because I didn't know with our food and all of the cool stuff we had going on, how much of that would disappear, right? Not be part of our ICP. So when we scrubbed that, we had about 50% was quality leads left over, which is pretty good considering all the activations we ran.
Sure.
We had 6% of those were hot leads that had immediate next steps, which is stellar. We did pre-book 40 meetings before RSA, and I would say we had maybe 32 of those occurred. We did hit our more than our 20,000 social media impressions. We had 220 net new followers, which for us is a 98% increase in followers in 1 week,
Wow.
if we're looking at that data. And then we also had around 50, 60 mentions of our booth. And those continue to come in, right? There's a trailing effect as well.
Yeah.
We were in 2 PR articles. We had countless journalists mention us as well. And then we've had kind of a follow-on effect of when our SDR team, which is under me, is reaching out to prospects. They start with, we were the ones with the diner booth. And either people say, I loved it and start talking about it, or they say, oh, I'm so upset that I missed out. I couldn't go. But right there, we're starting the conversation from a very different angle, right, than the average vendor. The
Yeah.
other piece that's happening is we've had 2 opportunities to participate in category leadership programs or engagements with organizations that unfortunately I cannot mention yet, but that's another kind of trailing effect of really standing out and catching people's attention to want to learn more about the product. And we also were approached by InfoSec. We tried really hard to get in booths at InfoSec London lately. There were only crappy locations left over. Was a no-go before RSA. This week, Kim gets an email from InfoSec's team saying, we loved your booth at RSA. We really want you guys to be part of InfoSec London. We freed up some booths. Let's talk. And Kim being Kim, fantastic, negotiated them down to half the price as well. But there's a lot of kind of follow-on activity, engagement. I mean, I even had a vendor play where I may have done it to you, but I think we proactively took a selfie. But basically, anybody who wants to work with me and get any marketing investment dollars would have had to take a selfie with me in front of the booth and post about it.
Wow.
And I got some funny expressions at first, but I said, hey, if you want to do business with me, that's my ask.
Yeah.
And every vendor did that too, right? So there are really creative ways you can think about this, but it was a blast.
It certainly looked like that from the outside looking in. You know, the execution and the on-the-ground reality, what surprised you most about that week and when the booth was live?
Yeah, so given the battle testing we've done up front with AI of making sure that we can pull this off in all the ways we want, we even went as far as to look at if we go when we go viral. I always said when, not if, to my team. Here I go again with if. When we go viral, we need to know how to get people in and out of that booth so we don't have a giant mess, right? So we looked at everything. What I didn't anticipate, which happened organically and was amazing, going back to what are those 3 things that make booths go viral? If I wanted to make a bold statement, such as we're going to beat Wiz and Torque, which sounds nuts, right? And is. And I couldn't have done it with a team that believed in this idea and said, sure, let's do it. And 3 months later says, why did you give us those 500 extra Asana tests? We really regret saying, let's do this. The other component is you have to make it a Disney-like experience. That's what no vendor has done so far in cyber. And what do I mean by that? Just how in Disney you don't have Mickey Mouse running across a different set of characters and it's out of place. We made sure that everything was on brand, right down to, diner earrings such as pies, pancakes, what have you. The stress balls, the swag was diner focused. Like I can show you
Yeah.
here, we had a little stress ball burger, pretzels. I mean, everything was on point. The noises were on point. We had a little cash register. And by creating an atmosphere, people really stopped and took notice. 2 things really surprised me the most. One, no matter who it was, immediately people took out their phone and started snapping pictures. I just watching it happen organically without me even having to say, hey, do you want to snap a picture? It's amazing. Like, this is exactly what we wanted and it's working, right? And by creating that atmosphere, it's just as if you go to your favorite restaurant, it's not just the food, it's the people watching, it's the waiter or waitress and how they treat you. It's the whole thing. Do they know what your favorite drink is when you come in because you're a regular? All those things matter. We had that, but what really did it, and our team internally one off told me post conference as well, and that's really when the light bulb went off. Why did this all work so well? Chantel put it best on my team. Because the staff was committed to the bit, everyone was collaborating. And she said, when you collaborate, that's when the magic happens because we were all on the same wavelength. We thought we'd have to convince our guys to put on those checkered black and white shirts, the red aprons. I mean, what sales guy is going to put on a red apron? On top of that, diner hats, right? The
Yeah.
girls all have matching lipstick like they do on airlines. We thought of every last detail. We didn't have to tell anyone. Edward showed up, he put his diner hat on, his apron, everybody was ready to go. So just by people playing along, I think they loved the opportunity to be part of something cool and different. They were excited. And that kind of enthusiasm really captured our audience. I mean, you couldn't ignore it if you wanted to.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, so you mentioned a couple of things about, you know, being noticed and the brand being recognized. What kind of brand perception shift have you seen? Have you seen, the way that drop zones looked at be is that changed at all?
For sure, because we're not just haven't been at the forefront of the category, but we're not here to waffle people and give them smoke and mirrors and give them the same boring stuff, right? We really brought it. And by being bold, it also translates throughout the whole rest of the company of the team is a unit. We've made that very obvious. So we all work together. So if you work with us, we have your back.
Yeah.
We did something different. So we're not just any startup. We're a cool startup where people now have FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Every buyer decision has an emotional trigger.
Mm.
So people want to be a part of this. They want to learn more. And yes, the tech wasn't front and center per se. We did say agentic SOC. We had a little ticker symbol at the top talking about incident response and all of that. But at the end of the day, we're being noticed because we're bold. And if we're bold, we're not afraid to really be cutting edge. And that is translating throughout every piece.
Definitely. Um, Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
A lot. Three things. One, make sure you have storage. Our booth was so dang cool. We knew it. We were in trouble. We did not have a lot of room for storage.
Sure.
That meant we had to go back to those storage units from the staff at RSA. While some staff is really nice when you're working with unions and you wear that lipstick and the checkered shirts, you do not blend and you get catcalled. And it is not a fun experience. So we went back there as teams and units. So now we have a lot more storage at Black Hat. Number one. And also then you don't have to wait around all the time for new boxes to show up for them to get cleaned up. It's a lot of extra cycles.
Sure.
Um, we had a conveyor belt, kind of Japanese style, the modern component in addition to our robot, where the food would basically go in a loop. Wiz had a few of those as well, but with big robots on them. Just like ours, Wiz's conveyor belt broke. There was nothing we could do about it. It was supposed to be one of our key pieces, what our CEO suggested and loved the idea of having. It didn't work. We tried a fan to cool the engine. I mean, the thing was about to burn up and cause a fire. So we nixed that entirely. It was a great idea. It's just there's no way anybody can make it work. And if Wiz can't make it work, we can't. So we got rid of that, but thankfully we had so many other cool components that no one even seemed to notice. Um, and then the other piece that we're doing differently for Black Hat is we're making sure that we have a lot more sitting space for in-person meetings so that our sales team doesn't have to jog back and forth from our VC Decibel was kind enough to give us a meeting space at the Children's Museum we rented. But there was a lot of kind of mad dashing back and forth because we did go viral and we were so busy
Yeah.
and making sure that we have more of the folks in the same area. And it wasn't even hard to convince the sales team because they said, absolutely, we want to be there. We don't want to miss out. So those are the main components.
Awesome. It's not often that everyone wants to be on the booth. People fighting to be on the booth. That must be unusual.
And
Um,
fighting to go for Black Hat, I have a wait list.
for teams with smaller budgets, are there
Mhm.
any principles from this journey that you've been on that you think they can apply?
That's a great question. Yes, use AI. Battle test your ideas. Be creative. Put in exactly what you have in your arsenal for resources versus what you don't. Put in your goals. and then load all of the context. AI is only good as the context you put in it, right?
Mm,
So load examples from Wiz's booths, other booths that have been viral. Explain your target audience. Do all of that. It takes you some extra legwork, especially if you're not very familiar with using AI on the day-to-day. But that can be your sounding board and what gives you confidence as to, can I pull this off? And also, you can then ask, what is the likelihood that I can pull this off?
sure.
So even if you don't have the kind of budget that we do, and I'm very lucky to have a generous marketing budget here at Dropzone, thanks to Edward, think about what do you want to accomplish and what are some really creative ways to do it. There are ways to do this with less. Perfect example, Gianna from the Cyber Marketing Society, she has the same thing. She said, I used to have a massive budget, but here it's my own business and I have to be much more creative with less. It sounds ominous. It's doable. Just make sure for something like an RSA or Black Hat, you give yourself 6 months of time. It took us just about that much to plan everything out and
Right.
see what you can repurpose even beyond the conference. What ideas resonate? What can you do that's creative and different?
Mm. If you had to distill all of this into one core lesson, what do you think it is?
You're only as good as your team.
Yeah, very good.
That goes from the CEO saying yes to this crazy idea to honestly, if I didn't have Kim and Chantel just rallying behind this saying, why not? When most people would say, no way, it wouldn't have been possible because it really took the enthusiasm, relentlessness, and passion of Kim and Chantel to be able to pull this off. Otherwise, wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So get a
What
good team.
and what's next for Drop Zone in terms of the event strategy? What have you got planned for Black Hat?
Good question. So the other piece that's in our secret sauce is selfishly the agency that we leverage that I helped co-found. So just like Dropzone, we have agents for every role in marketing, just about.
Oh,
And that allows us to do about 10 times as many things and more accurately with more data. So we've put everything back into AI and into Cubic Squared, the agency's agents, to refine based on learning. So for Black
wow.
Hat, we have a 30 by 30-foot space. So we
Right.
wanted to make sure that it doesn't look like an afterthought when we make tweaks to the booth design. And because we have pro exhibits, it looks like it's seamless. A lot more booth sitting space. We're adding a diner counter. So every morning at Mel's at RSA, we had breakfast, the girls and I got more ideas. So we've added the diner counter. We'll make sure we have coffee. I think the biggest question we got was, do you have coffee?
Oh, really?
And amazingly enough, we did such a good job of our theme and atmosphere that people were frustrated. What do you mean I can't have full-blown diner breakfast here? What do you mean you're not serving a real-sized burger? But I want this. That's great. I'm sorry, we're still not an actual restaurant, right? So incorporating some of those ideas, making sure the food counter is a little bit more out of the way, that we have more storage, bringing dropper back for sure. And yeah, excited to do it all again. And more comfortable diner hats then don't give you a strange line on your forehead when you take it off.
Oh, I'm excited to see it. And where can people follow along and learn more?
Great question. So to learn more about Dropzone and our agentic SOC, you can check out dropzone.ai. To connect with me, I'm more than happy to give input, feedback, be a sounding board for any such things, as well as Kim and Chantel. You can find us on LinkedIn. And then if you would like to have AI assistance and run circles, run circles around your competition on the marketing front and force multiply your team, check out cubicsquared.ai.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's everything we've got time for, Anne. Really enjoyed that. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.